We'll go for something on contextual vocabulary. In fact, contextual vocabulary is an advantage while approaching questions like para-jumbles, reading comprehension, closed test, and fill-in-the-blank questions. In the case of fill-in-the-blanks and closed test, when you come across a sentence, you try to understand the meaning of the sentence and then frame a word of your own to fill in the blank. Then see which word among the options has a meaning similar to that of the word you have on mind. That way we can keep eliminating the options. In the case of reading comprehension, meanings of individual words do not matter. What matter are the meanings of the ideas that are in the passage. So there's no need for us to get stuck with any word. Focus only on the ideas given there. When you come across a new word, you just leave that word and go to the rest of the sentence. If you're able to understand the meaning of the sentence, you can make an educated guess about what can be the meaning of that particular new word. That's all about contextual vocabulary. I've gone for a paragraph here with some new words, underlined words. We'll try to make some educated guesses about the meanings of those words based only on this context. No imagination, just visualize the context. First, I'll read the paragraph, then we'll move to every sentence. We'll make some guesses about the meanings of the words in that particular statement. It was a stormy night. The few drops of rain that drifted from the sky were a sufficient harbinger for the deluge that flooded the campus in the evening. The winter storm raged, leaving water running in the streets, fallen tree branches strewn across the muddy grounds, and children gazing out of the windows, hoping the storm would relent. Few ventured out into the night, as stiff winds blew at near gale force, whipping the cold raindrops into 1,000 icy daggers. We have some words underlined here. First, we'll try to find out the meanings of these words. Then we'll find out the parts of speech of these words in this context. The part of speech of word keeps changing. The part of speech of every word depends on the sentence in which the word comes. Come to the passage once again. It was a stormy night. Understand the meaning. The few drops of rain that drifted from the sky were a sufficient harbinger for the deluge that flooded the campus in the evening. The concepts in grammar will surely help us in the case of reading comprehension, para-jumbles, closed test, and fill-in-the-blank questions. I told you about these words, these pronouns, who, whom, that, which. These are termed as relative pronouns. And the rule to be discussed regarding relative pronouns is focus on the noun that comes immediately before relative pronoun, the verb that comes immediately after it. A relative pronoun can be replaced with the noun that comes before it. We can replace a relative pronoun with the noun that comes before it. That's what we discussed. If I go for a sentence like, he is the student who has bagged the first prize. He is a student who has bagged the first prize. Now, bagged means won, secured, attained, obtained, gained. Contextual meaning. He is a student who has bagged the first prize. Who is a relative pronoun. Now, as I told you, a relative pronoun can be replaced with a noun that comes before it. The noun that comes before who here is the student. So we can replace who with the student. Who can be replaced with the student. So he is a student who has bagged the first prize. Who can be replaced with the student. So the meaning of this statement is the student has bagged the first prize. The student has bagged the first prize is the meaning of this statement. This concept comes in this paragraph. I told you about little, a little, few, a few in adjectives. Little and few means nothing, negative. A little and a few means positive, meaning some. Little and a little are used with uncountable nouns. Few and a few used with countable nouns. Come to paragraph once again. It was a stormy night. The few drops of rain that drifted from the sky were a sufficient harbinger for the deluge that flooded the campus in the evening. Now that is a relative pronoun, and relative pronoun can be replaced with the noun that comes before it. The noun that comes before that here is the deluge. So that can be replaced with the deluge. So deluge that flooded the campus in the evening, that can be replaced with the deluge. So this sentence means the deluge flooded the campus in the evening. That's the meaning of the statement. Now what are we talking about here? We're talking about rain and storm. Can the few drops of rain flood the campus? No. They can wet the campus, but they cannot flood the campus. So we are talking about rain, and we're very sure that the few drops of rain cannot flood the campus. So in this context, when we talk about rain, what is required to flood the campus? Heavy rainfall. In this context, as we're talking about rain, only a heavy rainfall can flood the campus. And the paragraph very clearly says, the deluge flooded the campus. Now tell me, what can be the meaning of deluge? Heavy rainfall. In this context, we're talking about rain. We're very sure that the few drops of rain cannot flood the campus. In this context, only a heavy rainfall can flood the campus. And the paragraph clearly tells us the deluge flooded the campus. So deluge must be heavy rainfall. We left the word harbinger. The few drops of rain were a sufficient harbinger for the deluge. That means the few drops of rain were a sufficient harbinger for the heavy rainfall. Now what can be harbinger? Now when we see dark clouds in the sky, we know that there is going to be heavy rainfall. That means the dark clouds are telling us that there is going to be heavy rainfall. Similarly, when we see a few drops of rain, we know that there is going to be heavy rainfall. The few drops are telling us that there is going to be heavy rainfall. And there was a heavy rainfall because in the evening the campus was flooded. So few drops of rain were a sufficient harbinger for the heavy rainfall. The few drops of rain were telling us about the approach of the heavy rainfall. So harbinger can be something like signal, sign, foreteller, telling us about the approach of something. Foreteller, omen, cause, all these are fine. Signal, sign, foreteller, omen, all these words with the context. So harbinger means telling us a signal, something like a signal telling us about the approach of the heavy rainfall, the sign of the approaching heavy rainfall. That is the meaning of harbinger here, contextual meaning. So the deluge that flooded the campus in the evening. The winter storm raged. Now rage means anger, fury, that's the meaning of rage. But we want the contextual meaning. The winter storm raged. Now how does the storm show its anger? By blowing heavily, by blowing in a forceful manner. So winter storm raged means the winter storm started blowing heavily, became furious, became unstoppable, uncontrollable, started blowing forcefully, all these words with the context. The winter storm raged, understand meaning, leaving water running in the streets. Now at the time of a heavy rainfall, we can find water running in the streets. Leaving water running in the streets, fallen tree branches. Now the time of a heavy rainfall and a storm, what happens to tree branches? They break and fall down. Will the fallen tree branches remain in one place? No. Because of the running water and the storm, they'll keep moving from one place to the other. That's what happens to the tree branches. So fallen tree branches strewn across the muddy grounds. Strewn across the muddy grounds means scattered, spread, moved across the muddy grounds, thrown across the muddy grounds, dispersed across the muddy grounds, flowed across the muddy grounds, floated across the muddy grounds, all these are fine. Spread, scattered, thrown, dispersed, all these fit the context. Fallen tree branches strewn across the muddy grounds, and children gazing out of the windows. We know what small children do at the time of the rainfall. They just dash out. Gazing out means looking, watching, peeping. Now staring is the best word, because they'll be that much enthused, they won't even blink their eyes. So looking, peeping, watching, staring, all these fit the context. And children gazing out of the windows, hoping. Now if there is a change in the charge, you must be able to understand that. Now we always hope for a good thing or bad thing? Good thing. We will never hope for a bad thing. We always hope for a good thing. Till now, is it a calm situation or violent situation? Violent situation. If it is a violent situation, we'll surely hope for a calm situation. So children gazing out of windows, hoping the storm would relent. Relent means stop, pause, calm down, surrender, give up, end, all these with the context. So hoping the storm would relent, stop, end, calm down, give up, all these are fine. Few ventured out into the night. Ventured out. Ventured out means came out, went out, moved out, stepped out, walked out, roamed out, jumped out is also fine, fits the context. So walked out, came out, moved out, all these fit the context. Which one? Now what do you mean by the word adventure? Adventure means what? If I ride a bike, that's not adventure. But if I show some stunts on the bike, that is adventure. Mountaineering is adventure. It's an adventure. Now anything that involves risk is called an adventure. Now going out into such a night, whether it's heavy rainfall or storm, is some kind of an adventure. So came out, went out, moved out, all is the context. Now if you go for the meaning of ventured, including the word risk in it, few took the risk of going out. Few risked out, R-I-S-K-E-D. Few dared to go out. Dare means like possessing the courage to take up a challenge. Taking up a challenge is positive, whereas staying away from it is negative. So all these fit the context. Few ventured out into the night. Now my question is, did anyone go out? No one went out. Because I said few. Few means no one. No one went out. No one ventured out into the night as stiff winds. Now the winds are described as stiff because they are blowing heavily. As stiff winds blew at near gale force. What kind of force? Gale force, strong force, heavy force, huge force, massive force, unstoppable force, uncontrollable force, tremendous force, all these with the context. Violent force, intense force, all these are fine. As stiff winds blew at near gale force. Now as is a cause and effect indicator. I gave you the list of cause and effect indicators. Every cause and effect indicator must connect a reason and a result. It must be a negative reason and a negative result, or a positive reason and a positive result. The reason here is the two ideas that as connects here are, one is few ventured out into the night, the other one is stiff winds blew at near gale force. What is the reason here? Stiff winds blew at near gale force is the reason here, negative. The result here is few ventured out, negative, because few means no one. So as is a cause and effect indicator, connecting a negative reason and a negative result, so the concept of cause and effect indicator is completely fine here. So as stiff winds blew at near gale force, heavy force, huge force, whipping the cold raindrops. Now whipping means beating, lashing. The horse was given a whip means the horse was given a beating. Whipping the cold raindrops into 1,000 icy daggers. Now by the beating of the winds. Now at the time of a rainfall, in a storm, the raindrops will fall vertically or in a slanting manner. Slanting manner. Why? Because of the force of the wind. So because of force of the wind, against the winds are beating the raindrops, that's the reason why they fall in a slanting manner. So the winds are beating the raindrops, whipping the cold raindrops into 1,000 icy daggers. I use the word icy here because cold raindrops. So by the beating of the winds, the raindrops become 1,000 icy daggers. Now what's a dagger? Now dagger is actually a small knife. Now in this context, what can be the meaning of dagger? If I say, it's raining heavily, you're riding a bike, you're not wearing a helmet, raindrops will fall on your face. Will they pain you? Yes. You will feel as if the raindrops are piercing into your body. You will feel as if someone is pricking you with a pin. Why? Because they appear like sharp objects, pointed objects. So dagger is in fact a small knife, but in this context it can be any sharp or pointed object. So by the beating of the winds, raindrops appear like daggers, pointed objects or sharp objects. So if you're able to understand the meaning of the context, you can easily make educated guesses about the new words you come across. And this is very important in the case of contextual vocabulary, clothes test and fill in the blanks. We'll go for these in detail when we approach such questions. Questions on reading comprehension, contextual vocabulary and fill in the blank questions. Now we'll try to identify the parts of speech of the underlined words. I'll start from the beginning once again. It was a stormy night. Night is a noun because of the article a. What kind of night? The answer is stormy night. So the word stormy describes night. Night is a noun. Any word that describes a noun is called an adjective. So stormy becomes an adjective. The few drops of rain that drifted from the sky. Drifted is an action done by the raindrops. So drifted becomes a verb here. The few drops of rain that drifted from the sky were a sufficient harbinger. Harbinger is a noun here because a is an article. A sufficient harbinger. The word sufficient is describing harbinger. Harbinger is a noun. Any word that describes a noun is called an adjective. So sufficient becomes an adjective. For a sufficient harbinger for the deluge that. The deluge that. Deluge is a noun because the is an article. One reason. A and the are used with nouns. One more reason. The deluge that. That is a relative pronoun, and before a relative pronoun comes a noun. That is another reason to say that deluge is a noun. For the deluge that flooded. Flooded is a verb here because before a relative pronoun comes a noun, after a relative pronoun comes a verb. That flooded the campus in the evening. Campus and evening both are nouns because of the article the. The campus, the evening. The winter storm raged. The winter storm. If I say the intelligent boy, boy is a noun, intelligent becomes an adjective. Similarly, the winter storm. Storm is a noun here because of the article the. According to the sentence, the word winter is describing storm. Storm is a noun. Any word that describes a noun is called an adjective. So winter becomes an adjective. Actually, if you find any difficulty with any sentence, you go for a parallel sentence. The winter storm raged. Raged is an action done by the winter storm. So raged becomes a verb here. V2. The winter storm raged, leaving water running in the streets. Fallen tree branches strewn across the muddy grounds. Strewn becomes a verb here. Fallen tree branches strewn across the muddy grounds. Now strewn is an action done by the tree branches or done on the tree branches. The fallen tree branches strewn across the muddy grounds means strewn is an action done on the tree branches by the storm and the running water. Fallen tree branches strewn across the muddy grounds. The muddy grounds. The word grounds is a noun here because the is an article. Muddy grounds. The word muddy is describing grounds. Grounds is a noun. Any word that describes a noun is called an adjective. So muddy becomes an adjective. Muddy grounds. And children gazing out of the windows. Gazing is an action done by the children. So word gazing becomes a verb. Gazing out. Out in the sense. The word out describes gazing. Gazing out. The word out describes gazing. Gazing is a verb here. Any word that describes a verb is called an adverb. So out becomes an adverb here. It's an adverb of place. We don't want all those things. Yeah. Gazing out of the windows. Windows is a noun. You know that anyway. Because there is a possessive pronoun. After every possessive pronoun comes a noun. Hoping, it's an action done by children, verb. Hoping the storm would relent. Would relent, what is the part of speech of relent? Now I told you this while discussing subjective agreement, tenses, conditional sentences, pronouns. It is always would plus V1 plural. Would come is V1 plural. Would go is V1 plural. Would sit, would stand, would teach, would learn, would sleep. It's always would plus V1 plural. So would relent must be V1 plural. So relent is a verb here. It's always would plus V1 plural. Few ventured out into the night. Ventured out. Ventured is an action done by no one here. So ventured becomes a verb. Few ventured out. According to this sentence, the word out describes ventured. Ventured is a verb. Any word that describes a verb is called an adverb. So out becomes an adverb. Few ventured out into the night as stiff winds. Now winds is a verb. What kind of winds? The answer is stiff winds. What kind of winds? Stiff winds. So the word stiff describes winds. Winds is a noun. Any word that describes a noun is called an adjective. So the word stiff becomes an adjective. As stiff winds blew at. Blew is an action done by the winds. So blew becomes a verb here. V2. Blow is V1. Blew is V2. Blown is V3. As stiff winds blew at near gale force. Near gale force. Force is a noun. What kind of force? Take every word as a single unit, I said. Don't combine words. What kind of force? The answer is gale force. So the word gale describes force. Force is a noun. Any word that describes a noun is called an adjective. So gale becomes an adjective. The word near gale force. The word near describes gale. Gale is an adjective. Any word that describes an adjective is called an adverb. So near becomes an adverb. Force is a noun. Gale is an adjective. Near becomes an adverb. At near gale force, whipping the cold raindrops. Whipping is an action done by the raindrops. Whipping becomes a verb here. Whipping the cold raindrops into 1,000 icy daggers. Into 1,000 icy daggers. Daggers is a noun. What kind of daggers? The answer is icy daggers. The word icy describes daggers. Daggers is a noun. Any word that describes a noun is called an adjective. So icy becomes an adjective. So you need to understand the meaning of every word based on the context in which the word appears. You must be able to identify the part of speech of every word as well based on the context in which the word appears. So that's it about parts of speech. We'll go for this one in detail when we move on to closed test and fill in the blank questions. Hope it was clear to you. Thank you.